what he was doing was that he was trying to teach young children, young people in their teens, how to be in, the adult entertainment industry. Or, they were there as potential escort apprentices. Or even better yet,
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who likes his woman the same exact way he likes his yogurt. He is also a man who may include jumping to conclusions to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here because people be wilding out here. Like, I've got stories of people just saying wild shit, and other people are trying to get acquitted and are trying to justify their actions using wild shit. Like, I am genuinely at a point where I am starting to question whether humanity, as it stands, might be reaching the end of proper intellectual thinking capacity, or if people just want to justify doing wild shit, saying wild shit, and thinking wild shit the entire time. I've got a story on Diddy, and I've got a story on someone else that is probably about half of Diddy's age, if not even less than that. And both of them don't try to bring down the wild factor, because both of them are just making outrageous claims out here. But all in all, I do intend on getting to the bottom of each and every one of these stories. And I hope that once I get to the bottom of each of these stories, you'll be on my side. But then again, should you agree, should you disagree, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you have a suggestion on a potential topic or guest that I should have on the podcast, then the DMs are always open. The social media links are usually in the description, and they rarely ever change. And I would be more than happy to respond to your DMs accordingly. Also, if you don't feel like checking the description, you can always just listen to the end, because I always just mention my social media links there. But anyways, all that said and done, I do hope that you are enjoying what it is that you're listening to, and that you listen all the way till the end. Now, I do need to get this show on the road, and I want to kick things off with Diddy. So this is a bit of a story that has kind of sat in my inbox for a bit, but apparently Diddy officially appealed his conviction, and his argument, which caused the appeal, was that apparently the freak-offs, or particular parties where he would get very, very erotic, were actually amateur adult content, which is protected under the First Amendment of the US Constitution. Now, I probably had the same exact thought as you, which is, who the fuck in their right minds would ever look at an appeal like this and be like, I think we can probably make some provision for shit like this? Because this is Diddy. This is Diddy we're talking about. If you've watched the documentary on Diddy, then you already know that this is a guy that you don't even lock up for the 50 months that he was supposed to have been locked up. Like, this is someone that you lock up and you throw away the key and you let him get raped by people in prison. But anyways, that aside, like, this shouldn't be something that anyone would even consider. But at the same time, this is the United States of America, and the US isn't a real place. Like, there's wild shit that happens all the time. So maybe, just maybe, they might actually grant him that appeal. But all in all, let me just read the quick bit that kind of came with this entire story, which was, and I quote, "Lawyers for Sean Diddy Combs officially appealed his conviction and 50-month sentence on April the 9th, 2026, arguing that the quote-unquote freak-offs were not prostitution but staged amateur adult content," in quotes, protected by the First Amendment. The defense contends the encounters were choreographed performances, while prosecutors maintain the actions violated the Mann Act, end quote. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that, I think this guy has a chance, but if this guy actually does have a chance, then we should probably have also considered Epstein's case, because what he was doing was that he was trying to teach young children, young people in their teens, how to be in, the adult entertainment industry. Or, they were there as potential escort apprentices. Or even better yet, they should not really be feeling bad, because throughout the entire ordeal where they were being harassed sexually, they were experiencing some version of pleasure, so it wasn't exactly abuse. Like, this is the kind of shit that makes you wonder, like, is it that these guys are just trying to do the best they can because they're getting the money from this dude, or is grasping at straws something that they enjoy? Because I'm finding it hard to think about how these guys sat down together as a team, because it's actually a team of lawyers that were trying to defend this dude because, of course, money. Like, these guys sat down and were like, okay, let's find a way to get this guy an appeal. And they sat down, they racked their heads, and they were like, amateur porn should probably work. Like, considering that this guy was actually threatening and coercing certain people using said videos, I find it particularly hard to believe the fact that these freak-offs were quote-unquote amateur adult content. Now, don't get me wrong, it is adult content, of course, because people were actually doing adult things on it, but I don't really think that it was consensual or it was choreographed per se. Okay, actually, now that I think about it, you could argue the choreographed part, because, Diddy was making people do shit to Cassie while he watched, so you could say that it was technically choreographed, but still, this is one of the many times when I sit back and I think, like, there's jobs that suck, and then there's being Diddy's lawyer at this time, and I feel like that is worse. Because honestly, imagine trying to defend someone whose public reputation has been shit on so badly that right now, this guy is probably nearly on the same level as the big pharma CEO that got shot. Like, think about it for a moment. All of these people, the guy screwed over and ended up on a documentary busy talking about how he screwed them over. And also the fact that this guy has been prolific, not just in the hip-hop community as, someone that has helped bring up big artists, but also prolific for the fact that he has a history of abuse, To think that you would sit there and be like, you know what, it's fine, this guy is paying, I'm going to defend him till the very end. I low-key feel sorry for the lawyers, because while I know that they're doing it for the money, because no sane person would be like, I would love to deal with this case. So of course they're doing it for the money. I also feel sorry for them because they can't really justify them doing it because they love the law. Like, they're only just doing it because they want the money. Because I'm looking at this situation and it's like, how the fuck are you supposed to sit down and justify that? Like, I want you to just think about it for a quick moment. Like, how exactly would you justify Diddy doing what he did? Because, like, there's the parts where people didn't even know about it, and then there's the parts that people are getting to know about through the documentary and through the court proceedings. Like, how do you come back and be like, you know what, whatever he did wasn't entirely as illegal as it seems? But all in all, considering that these guys managed to get him 50 months, not life imprisonment, if not some shit like 70 years or some jack, honestly, I think that they could probably manage to pull it off. Now, I'm not saying that they should or that it's a good thing, and I will be very honest, I do think that Diddy is probably better off staying in prison, not just for our sake, but also for his, because I think his mentality can probably work fairly well in prison. But, I could be wrong. I've never really been in prison to actually confirm that. But honestly, like, I don't even think it's a matter of whether we can, but I think it's more a matter of whether we should give him a chance. But then again, as I say, the law is the law, so we'll see how that one unfolds. But either way, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our next topic of this episode. And it requires me to go down a path that I haven't enjoyed going down in years. Actually, it's a path that I'm not the biggest fan of, and that is the path of dealing with people that like creating gender wars and like talking about the patriarchy. Now, let's be particularly honest, while I do enjoy making fun of them, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of trying to debate their talking points, just because a lot of times it usually just sounds like bullshit wrapped in well-written jargon. Because oftentimes they'll usually just try and throw complex words, and then, they make it seem as though they actually know their shit, yet most of the time they barely know fuck all. But anyways, let me not talk too much about it. So I'm going to let the clip play. It was posted up by a young lady by the name of Natasha, and she was talking about how apparently relationships are maintained by how forgiving a woman is, or at least how forgiving the woman in the relationship is, which I'll admit I found to be particularly odd. But before I can give my thoughts on it, let me just let the clip play. So without further ado,
I appreciate and actually prefer when women are the problems in relationships. Like when women are the things bringing chaos to relationship. I am very happy. I am very, like, my soul is satisfied, because a lot of heterosexual relationships, a lot of relationships between men and women are just built on how much a woman is willing to forgive, because men are not taught or socialized to think, hey, like, how can I make this relationship work? How can I, like, what are the things that I need to do to make sure that my partner is fulfilled? So when women do not care, and women are just like being partners that are troublesome, and the man is like worried, I'm like, oh my god, amazing. A lot of just like being in dynamics with men is based on like trying to dissect what this man is doing, why he's doing what he's doing. How can I make this better? How can I help him? How can I improve him as a person? And how can I make this relationship better? And it's not only the fact that women focus on relationships, it's also the fact that women focus on themselves and they want to improve themselves emotionally, while men only want to improve themselves financially. And that creates a very big rift. And so I like it when women are the problem, because it's like, wow, like, you don't even care. Like, this is revolutionary. It is revolutionary when women are the problem. And you can kind of see the cultural shift moving away from like always making the man happy and like, how is the man feeling? How is the man doing? And that has definitely shifted, which I'm so happy about, because like this whole like relationships are just literally based on how much a woman is willing to forgive a man. It's disgusting. And so this is like the mental labor that women go through, and like how men are just incapable of thoughts, incapable of like fostering relationships. It's so stupid. I can't. Like,
okay. I'm gonna be very honest. I listened to this babe on TikTok, and by the time she was getting done with, the clip itself, I actually had a headache, because what the fuck, like, okay, let me dial things back a little bit before I can lose my shit, because I guess maybe to some degree I shouldn't really lose my shit as much, because the babe that is Natasha is supposedly 21 years old, and as per her profile on TikTok, is a quote-unquote full intellectual, and tends to talk about Kenyan feminist theory or some shit like that. I don't know. Either way, this is a babe with 16.3 thousand followers on TikTok, and she was busy saying this shit, so you know for a fact that there were a couple of babes that at least sat down and actually listened to this garbage. And look, I can totally get it if you listen to what it is that I'm saying right now and you think, oh, you're probably losing your shit just because you're a man, and she was speaking against men, and you're only feeling it because, like, if the shoe fits, blah blah. Like, you can have that thought process, and that's perfectly fine, but I am urging you to just listen all the way till the end, so that you can understand that my problem isn't with the fact that she's saying this against men, or she's speaking up on something that actually hurts men. It's because she's speaking up on something that actually hurts relationships in general, regardless of whatever gender you throw in there. And I say this because, like, I can get that she's young. She's 21, and when you're 21, you think you know a bunch of shit, even though you don't really, because you've barely spent much time as an adult and shit, and you're getting access to new information and everything. Fine, yes, you could argue that. But at the very same time, like, this is something that I find odd. Like, this thing where you have babes that apparently seem to find pleasure and seem to like it when other women or women close to them make men suffer is something that I find to be very, very odd. Like, I find it to be particularly weird, because why the fuck are you gaining pleasure from someone else's pain? Like, I feel like there's something a little bit sadistic in that. Something a little bit malicious in that. And the thing is, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there aren't men that gain pleasure from a woman suffering. It's just, I don't really think I've heard guys, even from the red pill community or even the black pill community, that are usually like, oh, you know what? I would love to see a babe getting cheated on while she watches. Or I would love to see a babe get beaten down on. Like, I've never seen anything like that. But I have seen babes, multiple babes, talk about how they enjoy when men suffer. And it's very easy to argue out that, oh, you know, it's because this baby is young and she barely knows anything. Maybe she's just going through some trauma. But the thing is, I've seen this with different women, some even close to me. And I can even give you a pretty simple example. A couple of years ago, I was going through it with a babe that I had really fallen for, and I thought we had something going, but unfortunately, you know, stuff didn't work out. So I'm in the pits, I'm really going through it, and I decide to hit up a babe friend who was pretty close to me at the time. And, you know, I tell her that I'm really going through it, and I decide to explain that I'm going through it because of a babe. I kid you the hell not. This is a babe who, I think at that time, she was like, what, maybe 25, 26? She goes ahead and says, I love it when I hear about men suffering because at least I know that the babes are doing something right. Kid you the hell not. This babe basically said that. I've probably paraphrased it a little bit, but it was actually within those lines. And she said that after I've gone ahead and opened up about the shit that I'm going through. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, like that shit hit me a different kind of way. And yes, she did kind of double back and be like, oh, anyways, I'm sorry you went through that, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, like, you would think when you spend enough time in the internet or too much time in the internet that it's the men that hate women. Oh, it's the guys that are usually saying some shit against women. But if you actually paid attention, you would realize, and this has even been statistically proven, that it's the women that hate the men. Like, us guys are hated and we're just there, just, you know, chilling, catching strays for absolutely nothing. And this babe over here is a very clear example that there's just a bunch of hate coming towards men, yet for the most part it's mostly unfounded, and on top of that it doesn't make anything better. Like, that's the part that I find to be particularly odd. But anyways, let me let this one go and just kind of move on ahead, because she wasn't just expressing her dislike of men, she did mention a couple of things. One of which was apparently how it's revolutionary how women can be troublesome to men. And I don't know, maybe it's just me. And I don't know, maybe my idea of revolutionary and, you know, like it's such a great new thing might be a little bit off. But I find it particularly odd that someone would think that, yet we have had troublesome women. We have had women who have brought multiple issues in relationships and have just chosen to be an absolute pain in the ass since time immemorial. Like, fine, maybe you might not have heard about that from like your grandmother's time, but at least our parents' time, we knew of women who were just troublesome. We knew of people that were just troublesome partners in relationships, to the point where we would even sympathize with the kids. We would sympathize with the kids. Hell, we'd even sympathize with that woman's husband because they have to contend with a problem that is that woman. But, you know, then again, there's only so much that you can really feel sorry for if the guy decided to choose the wife and make them their wives. But that's kind of besides the point. Like, this isn't something that is particularly new. Women have been problematic for a very long time. Now, I'm not saying women in general, I actually mean some, but for the most part, I'd probably argue that there's a lot more problematic women these days, just mostly because they've been fed the wrong information as far as relationships and what to expect from men. But, you know, like I always say, I could be wrong about that. But still, you know, I don't think that this is particularly revolutionary. Then also there's this idea that she had where it's like men are not socialized to think about improving the relationship, blah, blah, blah. And look, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but fellas, if you're a guy and you're listening to this, doesn't this shit sound like a large stack of bull? Because any guy that has chosen to be with a babe that he's really, really into will almost always try to improve things for the babe. Like, it might seem like the guy isn't doing jack shit, but when this guy is paying attention to the anniversary, when he's paying attention to birthdays, when he's paying attention to what she likes and doesn't like, is that not trying to improve the relationship? Like, does this babe think that us guys have to draw up a plan and get a strategy and invite a team of consultants so that we can show that we're trying to improve the relationship? Because whatever the hell she's saying doesn't make fuck all sense. I'd even argue that she has little to no experience of being in a good relationship for her to actually know that men actually do actively try to improve the relationship the longer that they're in it. Like, this is such an uneducated take, or should I say an uninformed take, coming from someone who has fuck all experience in relationships and is just looking at people's toxic relationships and thinking, you know what, this is probably because of the men. And with that said, I will even tell you for a fact, if you think that you do so much for a man, I will tell you this fun fact: you don't actually have to do so much to make life better for a man. So this whole thing of, oh, you know, we really have to think through and figure out how to make things better for this man, I kid you the fuck not. There are instances where you literally just being there, sitting down and shutting the fuck up is the best thing that you can do for the guy. I am being so serious about this. There are times where, as a guy, like, you just want your babe there. You don't really want her to do anything. You just like her presence there. Like, calmness, peace, be there, but do not say shit. But for the most part, provided that you don't nag him, provided that you feed him, fuck him, and tell him that he's great, and, you know, fluff up his ego a little bit, for the most part, you've actually kind of figured that shit out. Like, that is like 90, if not 80, but 90% of making a guy happy. And guess what? 90% is so much for a guy, because a lot of guys tend to get a lot less whenever it comes to their babes, because you basically put in the work to make this babe interested in you, then you get her to become your girlfriend, then now you have to keep her happy as your girlfriend, because if you're unhappy, the relationship quality kind of stays the same. But if she's unhappy, suddenly everything dips, and you have to figure out a way to kind of bring things back up to the same level that they were before. Like, guys usually put in so much effort just trying to figure out how they can best keep their babe happy or make them even happier than they currently are. Saying that men don't even think about such is probably one of the worst, if not the most wrong things that this babe has said as far as guys is concerned. Then also this idea that, oh, you know, women want to improve themselves emotionally, but men want to improve themselves financially, so they never develop their emotions. That is also a massive stack of bull. Because for the most part, if you've ever actually paid attention, it's not like either gender usually does that much as far as improving their emotional awareness, or at least their emotional maturity is concerned. Actually, I'd argue that men tend to be more emotionally mature whenever they put in the work. What I usually see from most women is that they're more emotionally aware. Not necessarily mature, but just aware. Because when you look at it, like, a lot of times you find that the most rational person whenever it comes to arguments is usually the man. And look, I'm not saying that the man is always going to be right. It's just a lot of times for arguments to be resolved well, a certain amount of emotional maturity is there. Guess who usually caves in the most, if not the man? Like, really, Nika? But anyways, also, fun fact, women also try to improve themselves financially regardless of age. Like, even babes in the early 20s are trying to improve themselves financially. So this isn't something that is specific to men. This is something that's on both genders. So this is also another bullshit take. But anyways, all that said and done, back to the original thing that you were saying. Are relationships maintained by how forgiving the woman is? Now, I will be very straightforward and I will keep it very simple and say no. It is not just maintained by how forgiving a woman is, because I have seen situations where the man being the more forgiving person has been what has kept that relationship running. But if you are talking about a good, healthy relationship, then it is both sides that need to be forgiving for it to actually remain. Because there's a lot of shit that happens in relationships, of which not all of it is going to be great and not all of it is going to be bad and done by the man, But at the end of the day, there's a shit ton of forgiveness and understanding that is required from both parties to actually keep the relationship going. Because the thought that a relationship is usually maintained by how forgiving a woman is practically like saying that it is only kept running because there is a woman that is willing to take all of the shit that a man is willing to do, because it is the man that is usually doing some dumb shit and the woman is always on the right, which is absolutely wrong. Fine, yes, we can go and sit and joke about it and say that, like the girlfriend is always right, or the wife's always right, or she is always right. But the reality of it is both sides are going to be right and wrong at different times. And sometimes it's not even about right and wrong. Sometimes it's just a simple disagreement, yet neither side is right or neither side is wrong. A difference in perspectives doesn't necessarily mean that there is right and wrong. And this is a very clear example of why some topics, some things, whenever they're discussed by certain people, can easily show how immature or uninformed someone can be, or just ill-experienced when it comes to life. Because anyone who's been in a healthy relationship would never knowingly say garbage like this. And so, to kind of conclude all of this, what I am trying to say is relationships are a two-person game. It's not about one side being more important. It's not about one side taking more than the other. It has always been about two people trying to make it work. If one person is holding that relationship together, then that's not a healthy relationship. It's one person in that relationship and the other one who's basically just having fun or doing their own thing outside of it. And that isn't what you'd call a healthy relationship. So I'm going to repeat again. Relationships are a two-person game, and both sides are equal. Otherwise, if you think the goalkeeper is more important than the striker or vice versa, you will very easily find out why both of them have their merits and demerits and why they work so well together. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have a particularly wrong idea of this entire thing, or maybe I'm misguided because I'm a man. But either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG. It is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.